Hello, everybody. It's Sonia here, and welcome to today's podcast and live Leadership with Sonia, where I have the honor of speaking with incredible humans and leaders around the globe. And we are speaking to the most fabulous humans and leaders at the moment who are our finalists in the 2024 Outstanding Leadership Awards. And today I get to speak to one of the finalists, and her name is Bridgette, and she is a social psychologist from the Neuroleadership Institute, and she leads engagements globally, and she's a chief psychologist there as well. There's lots more to what she does in her bio. She does so many incredible things. We were just talking offline about how passionate we both are about the neuroscience world, and she's going to recommend some books to me, which I'm more than happy to share with the audience. And I just wanted to say a massive thank you, Bridgette, to coming to the world, or coming to Leadership with Sonia, and making a difference to neuroscience and leadership around the globe. Welcome.
Thanks, Sonia, and thanks for the opportunity to speak a little bit about leadership and what it means to me, and hopefully what it means to the people who are listening as well. So, yeah, thanks, and I'm excited to talk more.
Well, the burning question, leadership, what does it mean to you? Like, why does it matter?
Yeah, why does it matter? I mean, when I was studying social psychology to become a social psychologist, I was taught about something that we call social norm theory. And essentially what that is that when humans are collective by nature, which means that we prefer to act in the same way in groups, and how we act is actually influenced by one or two people in those groups. And so when something happens, we tend to respond, and by looking to someone else to guide us as to how to react and how to be in that moment in time in the world. And so for me, in the world that we have now, this is the role of the leader. And when I think about leaders, Sonia, I think about what different types of leaders there are. For me, there's really three definitions. There's the family leader. So my role as leading as a parent for our children. There's the community leader that looks at how we actually make the place where we live and where we prosper a better place for all of us. And then there's the work leader, whether it's within a business or within government. So everything I do in the leadership roles that I have in my life, because I have all three, is whether it's good or bad or indifferent, what I do and how I act actually has a contagious effect on other people. It influences how other people lead and how other people act. And so why does leadership matter? If I behave in a way that has this positive contagious effect, then I actually might just influence one or two people in how they lead themselves and how they lead others. And that can actually have a significant impact on their lives at work and at home. And this really aligns with the values that I personally have around integrity and family and community. So for me, it's so important because it's actually so contagious. We have a power as leaders to influence others, whether that's good or bad or indifferent.
Wow, so true. And I love the social norm theory and those different roles that we do have when we are leading the way, whether it is in the family, the community, or work. And even when we're delivering leadership programs, we talk about those different roles that we do play. And people will show up to our leadership programs and go, "Oh, you're teaching us these skills for work." I'm like, no, these are human skills. They're skills for community, for family, which are also incredibly important leadership roles. And I would love to know, how did you get into this space? Like, what made you go, this is the direction that I want my journey to go? And I'd love to know a little bit about your story.
little bit about my story. Yeah, it was an interesting, when I was sort of preparing for this interview, I was thinking about all of the experiences or key moments in my life where that would have led me to where I am today. And I think one of the things that I've always held very true is the impact that I have on other people, because whether or not we're famous or whether or not we are, we see ourselves as important in the world, we actually are important in the world, because every difference that we make happens right here, even in my studio that I'm speaking to you from today. So probably one of the biggest impacts that I had was, I'm taking you back to the 1990s when I was in high school. And I decided, I woke up one day and I said, Dad, I think I'm going to go and find and enroll in the best high school that I can possibly be in to finish my years of school. So I was in grade 10 at the time, and Dad was driving a 1971 Ford Fairmont chocolate brown, for anyone who remembers those. And he said to me, okay, go for it. He goes, but know that the best school is probably something that I'm not going to be able to pay for, so we might have to get creative. And so my dad's been a real role model for me in terms of leadership, because immediately he set some accountability to me. He told me what the obstacles were in advance, and he said, go with this with a growth mindset as well, which I did. And so I thought, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? So I decided, as the leader of myself at the ripe old age of 15, that I would write a letter to the school that I wanted to go to. And I would tell them all the reasons why I was the person that they needed to contribute for the better prosperity of the school. And a couple of weeks later, I got a phone call. My dad got a phone call, and it was the principal of this particular school in Brisbane. And the principal at the time said, we'd like you to come down. And I went down and I thought, what's all this about? I think I'd been to Brisbane 2 times maybe in my life. So everything was overwhelming. Traffic was overwhelming. And I walked into the office and she said to me, sit down, Bridgette. The first thing I want to tell you is this. In my 20 years of being a leader of this school, I have never received a letter to request to be part of the school from a student. I've only ever received it from the parents of the student.
Wow.
You've shown me a level of leadership that you actually can lead yourself and into the future. She goes, I'd love to offer you a position. And I looked at Dad and I could see Dad sweating, you know, like thinking, oh my God, his face looks very fancy. I said, thanks very much. But look, I don't think that this is the kind of place that someone, you know, of our background can afford to pay. Can we find a different way to make this work? And so 2 weeks later, I got another phone call and they offered me a academic scholarship. And I just thought that is, for me, that was such an important part of my life story, because I had grown up in an environment where both sets of grandparents immigrated to Australia from Greece and Italy, left everything, all the families that they knew behind, to set up a life here. I mean, to me, that is the essence of having a courageous, brave, growth mindset to be able to do something like that. And I know that many of the people here are listening to have similar stories. But one of the things that they said in me really early on is that they taught me the power and the struggle of actually how to balance being autonomous, you know, but actually having a go and doing something, having some control over the way that I did things, taking accountability for my actions, and also having the opportunity to see every challenge as something that I can learn from and grow. And so I think that is, for me, these fundamental parts of my story often come back to the celebrations and struggles that my family experienced, as well as, you know, the support that they provided. So everything I feel like I do today is with a sense of integrity, because I almost feel like my grandparents, who pioneered so much and carved the way for so much in the world of myself and my siblings and my cousins, they would be saying to me, you did what's right, Bridgette, not necessarily what's easy.
What courage. Wow, that was you really leaned in there too. You really went for what you want. Something that, what a great role model, and something that we keep needing anyone that's listening or watching instilling in. Just if you want something, go for it. Like, just if you need to write that letter, write that letter or that email to go, you know what? I want to be part of what you're doing. I want to go for that dream job, or I want to be part of your organization, part of your school. And are we allowed to ask what school it was?
It's probably better that I don't, because I was going to tell you, here was the experiment. So I went into this new school with people who I would never normally walk alongside with, So if you think back, the class divide obviously has gotten greater, but this is, I was the daughter of a mechanic, dealing with, neurosurgeons' daughters and all sorts of incredible people. And why I'm telling you this story is that it was probably one of the most emotional and frustrating experiences of my life, because I walked in there with this fresh mindset thinking, okay, there were so many opportunities to improve students' lives at the school, and I was living at the school as a boarder as well. And what I realised, Sonia, is that in a traditional way, there were so many fixed mindsets around how things are done around here. And for me, that coupled with being that sense of bias or that sense of judgment for being that little bit different, which again, we are talking about the 90s now, right? So you didn't have to be different to be really different. I think what it meant for me is that I learned so much around how the real world works. For me, I felt that I'm naturally very transparent and very vulnerable. And I'll give you a great example is that I missed my parents, my family. We were so close. So I have 4 brothers and sisters, so close. And for me, the way that I communicate, is to talk through that and to see, how I could actually get the support that I need. And sadly, though, the story that I said, look, I said, I really miss my parents. I'm going to, I was in grade 11, I was 16, so all the insecurities that a 16-year-old girl has. I'm going to see how I go for the rest of the year and see if I can actually do this, because I just really miss not seeing my family. Only seeing them once a term for me it doesn't feel like enough. They really fuel me. And so I learned the power of actually trust in that experience, because I was invited back down to the principal's office, who I think we had a good relationship. She expressed that she was interested in me, and she really, loved my get up and grit. And I was always coming up with new ideas and wanting to set up committees to save dolphins, or to, build trees, or to do something for helping people experience music in the community. Often came back with a no, but I was always kept going back. And she said, we will not be put on trial. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? So what I learned from that is that I may have been willing to experiment and try something new, but I can't always expect that from others, particularly if I haven't taken them on my journey as well. So anyway, with my tail between my legs, I actually left, and I went back to the school that I was at. And do you know what? It was the best experience in that way, because I learned about myself and all the things that I can do, but all the things that I needed to work on if I was really going to contribute and make a change in the future, which actually led me to psychology. And psychology and economics, which is what I studied at university, because I really wanted to understand from that experience what made someone think that they needed to that what I was doing was a threat to the school environment. What was the principal experiencing when she made that decision to say, we're not going to be put on trial, and it might be better if you're not there, you're not here anymore? And what does that mean for everyone else who experiences something that, when they saw me and the consequence, what does that mean in terms of how people could speak up about how they were feeling and what they were doing as well? So that was, to me, life defining, because that got me to where I am today, doing what I'm doing today, and also continuing to fall over and learn and coming up relentlessly with new ideas, but enjoying the journey as well along the way.
What an amazing story of, courage, but also you having that grit, right? And you would be incredibly aware of the success attributed to grit, like gritty kids and how they turn into successful adults because they have a real growth mindset. And here you were wanting to, it sounded like you were quite entrepreneurial as well. And, here you are in an environment wanting to kind of go, right, let's try new things. Let's kind of come up with ideas. And it's interesting language, that obviously there was a threat response going on for them. But in saying that, you gave you again that courage to go, this isn't for me. It sounded like you went values aligned. And it's these moments in our story where we do step up and lead that are life-changing. At the time, you probably were going, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, I can't believe this happened. I had these high hopes, but looking back now, you're like, that was one of those life-defining moments. And it sounds like your parents are amazing. And I'd love to know, like, who else has been a great influence for you around who you are today? I've been role models.
Yeah, I've been really lucky in my life that I've always seemed to stumble on someone right when I am asking a question that I'd love an answer to. So back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I, as many Aussies did, shipped myself overseas because I thought, this is great, but I actually want to see what I can learn from the other side of the world. So I had an opportunity. I was with Ernst & Young at the time. I had a graduate role. I was the only non-accountant in that graduate program. So that was really interesting, building behavioural models for graduates all the way through to partners, and doing some really cool stuff with them. Didn't know a thing about accounting. And anyway, so I moved over to the UK with them and took on roles, around Europe and also in the US, and similarly also with IBM. And probably some of the best role models that I had were in my time in IBM. I actually had the opportunity to work with some of the most powerful but gentle leaders in this global monster of a business, in Paris, in upstate New York, which is the holy grounds of IBM. And the reason why they were a role model for me, and when I look back on it, is that probably the single greatest thing that they did as leaders that allowed me to really thrive in that environment is that they didn't look at the difference. I was a 24-year-old female who had some ideas around creating, at the time, technology patents for how we could actually improve the lives of people at work, especially on the front line, who had this brand new thing called mobile phones, with no access to desktop computers. Even now, many of our site workers don't have everyday access to technology through work, and all the complications around that if you do give them access to technology. So they gave me a go. They said, go write a paper. Here's 2 people. One was based in Europe, one was based in the US. Go write a paper and say, what are the critical issues in designing something like this, so that you can give people that opportunity. And so we went away and we did that, and that led to us testing technology in Zurich. I never forget it. We were testing fingerprint technology. You can imagine now, like, fingerprint technology and scanning technology, how we could actually get people to do something really simple, as simple as, what if I'm sick for work? Do I need to go through the stress of phoning in and then not getting the person that I need to speak to and leaving a message and not sure if they're, they've picked up the message, and not having a confirmation that they've received it because it affects my pay and all sorts of things. Anyway, so we developed this technology, which is now patented and used by lots of platforms around the world still. And I got to speak at the HR, won an award at the HR Technology Summit in the early 2000s, and they asked me to present it because the leader at the time who really sponsored this, he actually didn't see me for who I was in a physical sense, but what I could be in a leadership sense. And so for that was probably my biggest growth curve. I trusted him. He had my back 100%. If there was an issue, he dealt with it promptly. He was always listening to understand, always listening, and also encouraging me to really, bring people around me who I could actually gain different perspectives of to try and find the right solution. So that was probably one of the most, and it wasn't just him, there were other leaders within that particular organisation, but probably one of my biggest learnings, and how I actually grew up to be a leader by being part of that.
That sounds incredible. The difference working with great leaders makes a huge difference, and that's, when I say to people, have you ever worked with a not so great leader? And everyone's like, yeah. It's like, okay, how did that feel? Like, and it's like, did you work with a great leader? Yes. It's like, how much more wonderful is it to actually show up and work with leaders that are amazing, right? And how much more enjoyable and more motivated you are. And so, to you, what makes a great leader? Like, in your views, from your perspective, we all see leadership differently, but for you, what makes a great leader?
Well, I think we're sort of talking a lot about that even here, a great courage and kindness and trust. And you can't, the one thing that always interests me, and I get to work with some incredible leaders as a trusted advisor, and also to lead as well within the different clients that I work with in the organisation that I work with. But great leadership doesn't just come to us. It's kind of like a formula. It's an outcome. So it's a formula of behaviours, these sort of habits that we need to have. It's about how do we listen deeply and listen to understand. It's about acting for the whole, not just for us as me, or for part of the team or part of the business. It's about acting in the spirit of the whole. It's about how we empower people for excellence and how we create great connections. We've talked a lot about this, and I, benefit of being a social psychologist is there's great dinner parties and there's great lunches with fellow, colleagues or alumni. And one of the things we always talk about is what are leaders missing? What's happening right now? Where are we falling down in leadership? And one thing keeps coming up, and that is around, our ability to connect with people. And it's another way of saying the woke term that I often hear. People go, oh, that's woke. It's about empathy, how we tune in to someone, how we understand them, how we inquire, how we ask questions that actually uncovers where someone is driving meaning at work, or where someone's driving meaning in life. And then how do we align that with what we need them to do as well? I think we have a significant gap and a challenge there. So that a great leader is a leader that is acutely aware of their need to be able to connect and tune in.
I love that. I love that. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I had a few others, but that's one of my favourites. Is around. I think that great leadership is about that sense of connection.
I would absolutely love to know what others you have as well. But in terms of the connection piece, yes. I agree. I, funnily enough, was just talking to someone about this that I highly respect a few weeks ago. And this ability for us to connect is missing. Like truly connect, truly be present, truly be seen. Like if we're buying a cup of coffee or at Coles or Woolworths, are we connecting? When we're at work, are we leadership by walking around and connecting and being curious? And I think that I think as well, I don't know whether it's post-COVID or happened during COVID and the fact that, working environments have changed. I think we have become more siloed, more insular in terms of, are we really helping and serving and providing and asking people for help and, making sure everybody's well-being is okay. And, and this is why I'm putting the awards together, because not only to champion kind, courageous and inclusive leadership is to get people to connect.
Yeah.
Because together, it's about courage and community. Together, we can do so much.
Oh, definitely. And, it's something that's needed. And partly I think there's this sense of overwhelm among leaders where this is a balancing act, right? We're trying to balance things that like between autonomy, giving people a sense of control because we've got a real taste of it during COVID. And we know it's actually more productive when we address, because it's a need that we have psychologically. We have the need to have the ability to be able to control how we begin our day and how we end our day, and sometimes some stuff in between. Balancing that with accountability is actually a leadership skill. Yeah. How we tune in and inquire and how we communicate to someone, and how we also show up as leaders where, leaders have the extra whammy of this power dynamics. The further up the chain we are in leadership, the less we see people as subjects that have a name, like Sonia or like Bridgette, but the more they actually see people as objects. And that's through no fault of their own. It's just the way that we present ourselves as leaders in an organisation. So often when decisions are made, they're not made with the humanity that I think that so many of our employees, if not all of our employees, are actually asking for now. That we almost need to lead with humanity and that human sense.
Yeah, I think we're looking at putting a summit towards the end of the year on, and we were looking and talking to some different speakers, and particularly around the HR, the human resources space, and many of them are going, I think we're missing the human side of things. We're getting caught up in the AI stuff, and we're forgetting that at the end of the day, it's all about humanity and about humans. And I mean, my next question I'd love to ask is, what do you think our leaders of today and tomorrow need? Like, if we think about, change, they say change is constant. Change isn't constant now. Change is just change. It's just, and it's just the norm. And I do hear the whole overwhelmed is a huge word I'm hearing from a lot of my leaders, and I'm overwhelmed. I'm trying the pace. And a lot of leaders are saying to me, do we need to learn how to deal with keeping up with the pace and leading change and things? I'm like, wow, like what do they need, like, for them to kind of, you think about that formula, and I know that no formula fits in with, like, everyone is very, very different. So it's about owning who you are and knowing what you want to stand for as a leader and who you want to be. But if there were a couple of things that leaders listening today, or, people that are listening today, to go, if I could learn a couple of things to help me be a great leader, what do you think they are?
Yeah. And the hardest thing for us is when we're thinking about how to be a great leader and what skills we need is actually making it simple enough in a way that we're motivated to use it and motivated to act and actually lead that way, particularly when we're under pressure, because we're under pressure all the time. That's why we're overwhelmed. That's why we're burned out, among other factors. And I think that the biggest opportunity that we have is, as leaders, is to think about and improve the way that we engage and that we connect with ourselves and also with our other people. And so, this whole notion around being aware of our power and our power to influence, positively, socially influence the outcomes of how we lead and how other people will follow us and lead, because we have an obligation now to do good, and to doing good means being able to understand what is happening in this moment. And so that might mean listening deeply. It might mean trying to unite people widely and trying to get as many voices heard, so that balancing between psychological safety and accountability, where employees feel safe to speak up and while holding them accountable for the work that they need to do. And then this other aspect around acting boldly, because I think that we are in a little bit of a courage crisis right now. And we are looking for how we can actually stand up. And the best way to do that, to avoid any repercussions or negative consequences within the worlds that we operate in our families and in community and in the workplace. And so at the end of the day, it comes down with how we interact with people, how we communicate with people, how we actually send, communication's like a radio signal. It's a frequency. And sometimes we're off frequency, and that creates a sense of threat. It creates a sense of reaction and defensiveness in another person that can spiral into something else. So in the context of the world that I was in, back to my high school story, I started to question how vulnerable and transparent I should be as a person. When I thought about, because the leaders that I had at that time in my world, actually I felt that I was punished for that. So now more than ever, we have an opportunity to create those better connections with people. And I'd love to encourage leaders to start thinking about, if there were 3 habits, if there were 3 things that you could actually do every single day and share them with your team, share them with your family, what might it be? It might be you're just going to work on listening to understand the whole situation, not potentially what your view of the world might be. Understand how to create clarity. Are you communicating in a way that people truly understand what's expected of them? And do they feel encouraged and safe enough to actually ask questions if they're not feeling clear? It could be as simple as this is not rocket science, is it, Sonia? You've been doing this for a very long time, and and we've seen lots of clients around the world and lots of people, and yet we're still working in this space. This is a space that still doesn't go away, because we often forget that it's the simplest things that actually can have the biggest impact on how we lead ourselves and how we lead others. So I really encourage everyone here today to think about, what are the things that you would like to improve on? Go into this with a learning mindset, see your opportunities, and maybe ask those other people close to you in your life, because often we have one sense of reality, but other people can give us a better sense of what we're really like. And take that on, use that as an opportunity to grow. rather than and ask for feedback around what it is that you could do. How did you run that meeting? Or how did you, when you reacted that way, what happened? What was that what's that feedback that you can garner from that? It starts with us, and whenever it starts with us and we evolve, it impacts everyone else.
Love that. Those 3 habits, those 3 things that tiny tweaks, big changes, right? So what are those 3 habits you can start building on? And they make a massive difference. Just focus on a couple of little things, but remember to always focus on your strengths as well. We've got strengths and talents for a reason, but there's a couple of things you can work on can make a huge difference in your leadership. So I could talk for forever, and I know I've taken up so much of your time, and I know everyone's loved watching and listening you today, and thank you so much for some of your amazing insights into leadership. If people wanted to reach out to you to find out more, how could they reach you?
Just go onto my LinkedIn profile, send me a message. I look at that every single day. I can also send through my email address, but LinkedIn is the best way to get in touch with me. And if you'd like to know more, I'm more than happy to talk to you about all great things regarding how we behave and what we can do to actually make a positive difference for ourselves and others.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Well, you've already made a huge difference to me today. I've really started to think about definitely how I can be connecting more, not getting kind of caught up in the overwhelm and the busyness. But also as well, I would love you to share what are some insights or anything you'd love to leave this conversation with today for everyone that's listening? What would be some final words of wisdom that you'd love to share?
You know, I'm going to share a story because I do love telling a story, as many of you have probably already worked out in this short session that we've had. But so I worked last year with the largest bank in Africa, and incredible 22-country operation. And the CEO, his name is Sim Tshabalala. I always pronounce that wrong. A man of colour, and he's dealing with all the silent norms of that dynamic among his leaders. And he brought every one of his leaders in to the oldest and largest cinema in Johannesburg in South Africa. And at that, he said the following. He addressed his leaders over the cinema screen and he said, "Great leadership can bring light and light up the soul of this organisation. If we as leaders can do that, we illuminate the soul of our nation." So whatever we do impacts not only the person who sits next to us or that we work with in the next meeting, it impacts who we are at home, impacts the communities that we live in, and it impacts all those other people who will then do the same. So think about how you can actually use these habits to light up your organisation or your part of the world and what impact that will have. And it very often helps us to really reflect and think about how we can evolve as leaders.
I love that. I love that. What a great analogy, right? Light. It is about how we light that impact. It's leadership. We don't have to make it bigger than what it is. It's just about how we can make a difference and impact for each other. That's so true. It takes courage and kindness and connection. So thank you so much for your time today. It was such an honor to speak with you today. And I definitely would be connecting with you offline to go, love to know more. What are some of your book recommendations? How can we help you? So thank you so much. And we also cannot wait to see you on the 18th of May and at the Leadership Awards, which is going to be the most amazing leadership event of the year. And these awards are growing so wonderfully because we're about championing and shining a light on greater leaders and role models and humans, because we do need our future generations, our generations of today and tomorrow need to see more role models. And you're part of that. You're part of that legacy. So thank you so much for being part of Leadership with Sonia today. And it's been a real honor speaking with you.
Likewise, and thanks to everyone who's taken time out to listen as well. I hope you all got something out of it, and good on you, Sonia, as well, for bringing this to the forefront, because it's definitely needed, and the more we can do, the more we can shape our future.
I agree. I totally agree. So thank you for being such a great leader, and to stay kind and courageous, everybody. Thank you.